Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. In this video I will discuss the two other fronts opened against Russia. One hot war and the other one is a coup d'etat. The hot war is in Syria, the coup d'etat is ongoing in the country of Georgia. So remember, they're the rebels, democratic forces, one side says, and the other one says is the terrorists who want to actually overthrow the legitimate government of Syria, Bashar al-Assad. Now, let's start with what these, how should we call them, Syrian rebels, what they did lately. Here it is. Ukrainska Pravda. Syrian rebels claim control of Daraa, demolish Assad monument and video. Now remember when the Al-Qaeda or the ISIS started destroying things, and the guys in Afghanistan destroyed the Buddhist statue and all that. Remember that? What was the West's reaction? Oh my God! Here they celebrate. Why? I just think they celebrate, but they're smirking anyway. So where is this Daraa? And I'm going to show you where this Daraa is. This Daraa is in southern Syria, right here. This is the country of Syria. We see my cursor from here to here. This belongs to a north, actually, this from Aleppo down here like that. This, all that is non-Syrian territory at this point, even though legally it is, because the Americans are occupying this side where the Syrians have the oil, illegally occupying a sovereign independent country like Ukraine. Here is the Kurds, here is Turkey, who does whatever it wants here, and now we find out right here that in the south, in Daraa, these guys right here, Jordan, at the border of Jordan and Syria, which is right here. Jordan, Syria, and Daraa is right here. These guys occupy it and they destroy that monument of the ruler of the, if he's still registered, I think, at United Nations as being the legitimate ruler of Syria. So these guys are at least traitors, because they want through armed forces, to armed uprising, however you want to call it, destroy and not work within the system, as they ask us here to work within the system with them, right here, Daraa. Next, what are the Russians doing? Russia today, 7th of December, Russian-Syrian airstrikes killed dozens of, they call them, terrorists. Warplanes have attacked militant forces in central Syria, Sana has reported. So, Russian and Syrian warplanes has carried out airstrike targeting terrorist forces in the northeast part of Homs province, killing dozens of militaries. And I'm going to show you next where they did it. Sputnik. Syrian Russian forces launched massive attacks on terrorist positions near Homs and Hama. Homs and Hama. I'm losing my voice. So where's Homs and Hama? Right here. This is right here. Hama and Homs. Here is where the Russians launched the strikes. Remember, these guys are also in Idlib and Aleppo, the insurgents or terrorists, however you want to call them. All right, let's move on. We have this article coming from Russia Today again, and this is what Lavrov says. Using terrorists for geopolitical purposes unacceptable. Comment by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov comes after several terrorist groups launched a surprise offensive in Syria. I would like to know who funds them, very easy to find out, who provides them, sells them weapons. They don't have factories to produce weapons, so they take weapons from somewhere. You should see the convoys, you should see the receipts, you have satellites, you have internet access, clip. You should know the sponsors, and you'd get them, and you should know what countries, entities are doing this. Do you know who that might be? Well, let's figure out, because the Russians point the finger to some. Sputnik. Russia warns against geopolitical use of terrorists in Syria's conflict. The offensive by the Hayat Tahrir Papapap 8TS terrorist groups in Syria has been long in the making, and Russia will oppose attempts by the militants to alter the situation in the Syrian Arab Republic. That's what they said. So who are these guys, I wonder? Well, let's see. West backing terrorists in Syria, according to Russia. This is from the 5th of December. Moscow is working with Ankara, which I don't think so. I will show you what Erdoğan says, and Tehran to stabilize the situation, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said. Russia has reports that the US and the UK might be implicated in supporting the Al-Qaeda affiliate militants currently on the offensive in Syria, Sergei Lavrov has said. And I'm quoting, well, we have some information, Lavrov said. The information which is being floated and it's in the public domain mentions, among others, the Americans, the Brits. Some people say that Israel is interested in making this situation aggravated to that Gaza is not under very close scrutiny, end quote. It's a complicated game. Many actors are involved, the Russian diplomat said. Ready? Let's go to the next one. Ukrainian specialists, plural, train Syrian terrorists to operate drones, according to the Russians. Okay, according to the Russians. So this group and a number of other armed groups launched a large-scale operation against the Syrian government in November 29, advancing from the north of the northwestern region of Idlib towards the cities of Aleppo and Hama. I showed you those places. Hama, right here, from Aleppo, Idlib, go down. But it seems like these guys are attacking in the south. Let's see, where are we? Right here. All right, so he says, I can assume that 100% certainty that the militants are trained by foreign specialists. What do you assume? But if you have 100% certainty already, you can't assume. By foreign specialists and instructors. I have a gut feeling that's also true. I've been in the special military operations zone and I saw how UAVs are working there. When I came here, I saw that the militants use the same tactics as the Ukrainians did. Now, just to be clear, the art of war is not owned by a certain kind of country. All right. So if your tactics are used in a certain way, doesn't mean that the other guys train these guys. But hey, he's got a point. He's got a point, because the Syrians, the rebels, would not know the Ukrainian tactics so fast, because the Ukrainians got those tactics during the war in 3 years. All right, let's go to the next article. And we're going to see how we, which is CNN, the free world, looks at a, how do you call it? She just changed reformed from a former Al-Qaeda leader into a rebel. This is according to the CNN. Remember, CNN and other free world media yelled at Tucker for interviewing Putin or Lavrov. And their statement was, we don't provide them with a platform. But they interviewed this revolutionary. All right, let me show you. CNN, how Syria's rebel leader went from a radical jihadist to a blazer-wearing revolutionary. And they interviewed this guy, right here, CNN. They give this guy a beautiful pictures. Why do you think they place this and they don't place it, they don't put another one? They want you to be somehow sympathetic. So this guy, an Islamist militant in his 20s, moved back to Syria from Iraq in 2011 with 6 men and a monthly stipend of $50,000 from Babibi Baghdadi, who would go on to become the world's most wanted terrorist. His mission was to establish Al-Qaeda Syrian's affiliate, Al-Nusra, the ones that are attacking now from the north. So he is just a reformed jihadist. So why do you think he came with all these guys? Remember, with 6 other men with $50,000 a month. What do you think these guys were doing in Syria? Now, if you think that's okay, imagine the Chinese would do the same thing in the United States of America or Canada. Would you think that? Or the Indians from India. Do you think that's okay? Or I don't know, let's say the Iran in Israel. Oh, it hurts. I know. So this guy is a reformist. He's a reformist. Oh my God, I almost died here. Remember, his history doesn't start when he was the reformist. I would like to know how many people he, before he became a reformist, without being punished, brought in front of the court. And this is CNN. So when I hear these guys crying for these guys, he's a reformed guy. I think Al Capone became a reformed guy at one point, didn't he? And many others. So that's not a justification. Does that mean that the Russians' claims that the West is doing what it does in Syria is true? These guys are already propagandizing you guys and me, okay, with this garbage. It's a reformist. He's just a freedom fighter. He's just a mujahideen from 1979 and 80 and 81 in Afghanistan. Sponsored by whom? By the Americans. And not only. And those guys, the mujahideens, turn into Al-Qaeda. And then from Al-Qaeda they turn into ISIS. And then they came Al-Nusra. And they will become what? Washington, D.C.? What? The Pentagon? No. We are a defensive. Pentagon is a defensive department because we defend. But in order to defend, we have to punch everybody in the teeth. All right, so we keep them at bay. Now look what these guys are saying, which are the Iranians. Sputnik. Iran urges Ukraine to cease weapons supply to militants in Syria. Now, this is a little bit tricky. First, Ukraine produces as long as the West gives them money and resources. All right, so the Ukraine gives them weapons from us, actually. So we support, actually, if you go to the other ones, right here. We support these guys here. Why? Indirectly. Why? Because if Ukraine gives military and supplies military militants with weapons, those weapons are produced with our resources. To be clear about that one. All right, not entirely. Now, why don't we hear this in the Western media? I wonder. Over 370,000 Syrians have been displaced since start of hostilities. United Nations spokesman. Did you hear this at CNN? No, because they're busy to rehabilitate this guy. Right? They're busy rehabilitating this guy. Now, but no, it's okay. Now, 370,000 people might sound huge. Huge, my friends. 370,000 people. But hey, they are rehabilitating a guy. And we'll see where Mr. Erdoğan sits on this one. Turkey's Erdoğan says he hopes rebels' advance in Syria will continue. Well, I wonder when these good rebels of Mr. Erdoğan will go into Turkey with their Kurdish militia. Will he say the same thing? Of course not. So what do you think this is? I think this is garbage. Remember the other article coming from the Russians saying that the Russians speak with Tehran and with Ankara, with the Turks to... Nah. So what do you think, Mr. Erdoğan? And now we're going to shift into Georgia, which is the third front opened, not really military at this point in Georgia, by the West in order to destroy the evil Putin. So let's start with the first article. Ukrainska Pravda. Georgian government reports detaining 48 protesters overnight. They were just protesters. And they tell you, oh my God, in this article, they tell you that, you see, the interior minister said 48 people were detained under articles of Administrative Code of Disorderly Conduct, Disobedience to Police, Resisting Arrest, and so on. So this is every civilized country has it if you act imbecilically. And we find out that the detainee one was Becca Korsia, a journalist for the opposition. Oh my God. And then many others were right here. The detained coalition for the Change MP, this guy was released after the arrest. He was formerly a member of the parliament and has immunity. Okay, so then here, it was also reported that former economy minister Zurab Alavidze and his son were among the detainees. What do? See, these are good people, detained, and they can't act disorderly. Were they on the West payroll? I guarantee you, if this guy's coup d'etat of regime change in Georgia succeeds, these guys will have governmental jobs very well paid. Now, but what do we find from the other guys? Ukrainska Pravda. Ukrainian citizen reportedly detained at anti-governmental protest in Georgia. What was he doing over there? Just looking around. A Ukrainian citizen is said to have been detained at an anti-government protest. violent at times. Now, the TV channel reported that law enforcement officers had found a pepper spray and a mobile phone during a search of the Ukrainian. Georgian police claimed that they had detained the man as part of a criminal case related to the organization of group violence, which carries a sentence of up to 9 years in prison. Law enforcers took to the detainee in handcuffs to the police station. So, what do we know? Is he Ukrainian? Yeah. Necessary that he's a agitator? Not necessary. All right, or necessarily. So let's go to another article coming this time from the Russians about the Georgian protesters. Many Georgia protesters are foreigners, lawmaker says, according to these guys. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhtidze previously accused the West of trying to orchestrate a Maidan-like coup in a country. I think that's the point. Up to a third of those identified a recent protest in Georgia's capital, Tbilisi, have turned out to be foreign nationals, according to the executive secretary of the ruling Georgian Dream Party, Paparap. Anti-government protests broke out in Georgia capital last week after Prime Minister announced that he would be suspending accession talks with the EU due to Brussels' constant blackmail and manipulation. Is it legal? We'll find out. Pro-EU protesters, just spontaneous, with the NGOs, Soros and American CIA and State Department, I'm just kidding, not, have since taken to the streets and reportedly clashed with law enforcement, setting off fireworks and throwing Molotov cocktails at riot police. I saw that on video, so all right, my friend. More than 110 police officers have been injured during the protest. And it says that these guys, over 200 of these guys who were violent, who have been arrested. Speaking on the briefing on Tuesday, this guy claims 30% of the people who were identified at the protest in Tbilisi are citizens of other countries. What are they doing there? You know, doing what they do best. So what do you think, my friends? I'm going to show you the map where all this occurs. So we know who's who, what's what. You always want to know. So these are the Caucasus, okay? So here's Georgia. The idea is to start a second front here. If Georgia falls, these guys will start kind of garbage, and they have the Black Sea. They can be funded through here if the Russians allow them. And you got Armenia. That's another one. Armenia cannot create problems to Russia unless Georgia falls. Azerbaijan is going to kick them in the balls. Iran here, the same. Turkey, remember the Armenian genocide. So all they have, the Armenians have the Georgians. If the Georgians fall to the west, then Armenia will fall in next second. And these guys were going to create problems for Russia. Where is this located? Caspian Sea, remember, Black Sea. Let me show you. Here, this is Ukraine. And we're going to go south. This is the Sea of Azov. And not like that, I have to do it like this. Let me get my head off, like that, cut it off. So here it is. This is the country of Georgia right here. So this is where Georgia is. This is what you see. Let me bring me back. That's what you see right here, Abkhazia. Abkhazia, Georgia, South Ossetia, these are still under Russian control. Under the European agreement. It's not that they occupied it, if I remember correctly. All right, so this is Georgia. Got it? So what's going in Georgia? This is the third front. That, if the government in Georgia falls, is going to create the second and the third hot front against the Russians. Guarantee you. And the other one is in Syria. Now, do these guys use terrorists? I think they do. But I'm entitled to have my own gut feelings about that. And I'm just kidding because I'm on YouTube. All right. So what do you think will happen? Well, we're gonna have an extended war, and extended and expanded. Extended like duration and expanded as size. Congratulations. And to whom? You're gonna find everywhere in Ukraine. You're gonna find in Syria. You're gonna find in Israel if you want. All this, you have the same common denominator. You know who that is? It's not Russia. It's the United States of America. Just a coincidence. Don't connect any dots. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.